Wow, it's telling me.
I know, it's pretty fancy.
Got
Yes,
it. Yeah. Does it yours do that since you
it
set it up?
does. They just started doing that.
I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, because you could see it up top, but I
Oh, that's good to know. I actually didn't know that.
fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is
Let me
new. They
know.
just started, I think, this last month. So,
Ooh.
yes, we are officially recording.
No sneaky recording anybody anymore.
Right. Yeah. Good point, actually. That
Bad.
is a good
Too
point.
bad.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, Shira, thank you so much for being on Women with Cool Jobs. I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of
It's
course.
exciting. Exciting. Exciting.
Of course. So it's a pleasure. So you are an electrician and a handywoman with your own business called Mizz-fix-it based in Gainesville, Florida. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you a little bit about what you do and in your own words, like how do you describe what you do? Because you are a master electrician and you are a handy woman. And so what does that mean to you? Like what do you do in your own words?
Wow. That I usually don't have to answer that, so it's interesting. I I would say the handy woman thing is more new for me because it
Okay.
just depends on it's been because I flipped two or three now tiny homes and campers, and so you learn different things thanks to like handier friends than you. So I can fix a lot of stuff that people are just like, I don't know what this thing does, and I can do that. But there are other things that I will admit quickly that is out of my wheelhouse. So I've been doing electrical work for over 20 years. That's what I feel most comfortable with. But my
Okay.
my license is in Georgia. So in the
Okay.
US, unlike many other places, there if it's not like if you're a nurse anywhere in the US. If
Okay.
you're many other careers, you're there. It's just it goes everywhere. But electrical work is not like that. So
Wow.
your electrical license is good in Georgia. Some states share.
Okay.
My master's license is only for 600 amps and below.
Okay.
So it's mostly residential wiring that I always did when I had my own business back home. So
Okay.
that's what I'm more comfortable with. But I do have some experience in industrial wiring and commercial wiring. So the difference is like wiring a house, like putting in a new ceiling fan or recessed light fixtures, and troubleshooting why your outlet isn't working anymore, why the garage door opener doesn't work anymore. Those kind of things are more in my wheelhouse. But
Okay.
I have worked on sonic stations even more recently, like in putting in new light fixtures and the big signs. And so, and working the cranes that go up there, which is one of my favorite things to do.
Whoa.
A lot of the guys that want to be on them, like, yes,
Yes. Yeah. And
so
actually,
much fun.
I just interviewed a heavy equipment operator. Yeah, she's a rock star. Yeah, her name's Sam. She was awesome. So, yeah,
I
and
gotta
that's
check
I
that out.
know.
So much fun.
I could see
And
how
something
that'd
about
be so
especially being a
fun.
little woman with the in that big machine, you're like,
Yeah. Exactly.
super
I
fun.
know. It made me want to go
Super
do it
fun.
myself. So I could see how you'd love that
Super fun.
aspect.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so for you, like, let's touch on that right now. Like, why do you love being an electrician? Why do you love doing sort of the handy woman work? Because you're honestly the first electrician who's a female that I've ever met. You're also the first woman who I've ever met who calls herself a handy woman. And I
Oh, that's
love that.
cool.
Yeah, I love that so much, but it also makes me sad because I'm like, why don't I know any other official like women electricians or handy women? And so why do you love doing this so much? Like what's your favorite aspect or favorite part?
I think for me is like whenever, and it never gets old for me. Just the other day, I put in a couple of ceiling fans, and I have maybe I can send you the before and after pictures, but there's this junky old fan that like here in Florida at least they get droopy, especially if
Oh,
you have a fan that should be rated for indoors only is put outdoors, like people put it on their patio or their porch. And
okay.
so the wood just gets saggy. It's soaking up all this moisture for so many years. And it's just like, it looks like a flower that hasn't been watered in forever, right? It looks terrible. It's bringing down the entire porch. And then you change it out, you turn it on, and you're like, that looks good.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling, or the light's not working, they turn on, they're like, there's so much light in here.
Yes.
It's so fun when you flip a switch and something comes on. And I think that for me has never gotten old. Or when you figure
Yeah.
out why it's not working and it comes on, you're like, yes, so like that hasn't worked in 5 years. You're like, yes. It just feels like a real sense of accomplishment. I think for
Yeah.
me, that's one of my favorite things about it.
That's awesome. And I could totally see that. Like because I'm in Arizona and we have a dry heat, so we don't have the floppy outdoor fan, but I could see how, that would feel very accomplished if if you're fixing something like a droopy
Like,
fan.
and I always
Yeah.
say I like pretty things. I'm very much a girl in that. So I'm like, that's ugly. This is pretty. So
Yeah.
when I make it pretty, I'm like, yes,
Yes. Like, why not? Let's go for that.
yes.
Awesome. That makes complete sense to me. And it's interesting that like you mentioned that you like pretty things because I that is something that I wanted to address and I think that is really important for people who are looking, women in particular, who are going into the trades to talk about the fact that like you can be feminine, you can be girly or whatever, and you can still want to go into a career that, that is not typically, seen with a lot of women. That's mostly
Right.
male dominated.
Largely
So
male dominated, yes.
I'd
Mhm.
love to hear your thoughts on that because you've been doing it, like you said, for 20 years. And I know you started young. So I would love to hear your thoughts on like, how do you feel about that combination of still, wanting things to look pretty and having that femininity, but like also doing a career that's very traditionally male dominated?
Yes, yes. Well, it's like you said, it is very male dominated. I think when I started, I didn't realize just how. I just figured I didn't know many girl electricians, honestly. I didn't
Okay.
know that I was really like the only one in town or for the next 5 towns.
Oh my
So
God.
it became more news because I started so young, So
Yeah.
it was just something I'm like, sure. I mean, as long as it's not too heavy, and I don't mind asking for help. I've never had a problem with that. The femininity thing, I think that even I had a mental block there for a long time. I used to use my dad's old work pants
Okay.
because I wanted them to be baggy and not
Okay.
form-fitting at all. So I wouldn't draw any attention and stay small. And it's just irregardless, you're the only girl on the construction site. You're gonna stand out. And
Yeah.
you have a squeaky little voice. It's okay. But as time goes on, when guys see that you know what you're talking about, you get respect. It's not even something you have to demand,
Yeah.
And when you come into people's house and they're like, "Oh, little girl, did you just start learning?" I'm like, nope, it's been over 20 years. And they're like, "Oh," and then they're watching you work closely, and you see other little kids and little girls start playing with toys. And all my little play nieces, I don't have any real ones yet. I get them little pink tool belts and little pink tools. And so it's
Oh,
not for the next generation, it's not such a foreign idea
yes.
that girls can do these things and still be, and there's no shame in if it's too heavy, getting the guys to help you out. I always say, I'm like, I have this cute t-shirt. I think it's dirty right now. It's one of my favorite, but girl electricians work smarter, not harder.
Love it.
So we're gonna sit there and think about it. And the guys are so fun. They're like, "Arr," and just jump in it. And then 20 minutes later, they're like, "Oh, well, there was a faster way to do that." I'm like, yeah. So taking 5 minutes to think longer about it saves you time in the end. So this is one of
Mhm.
my favorite t-shirts. Another girl electrician friend gave me.
So it says female electrician. Of course, I don't work as hard as men. I get it right the first time. I love
It's a
that.
little controversial at work,
Of
but
course it is. Yeah, especially if you work mainly with men.
of course I do. And I love it. I love it. They question me, "Are you?" I'm like, "Could you read the t-shirt again?" And still, not taking anything away from them and what they bring.
Of
Of course,
course.
everybody has their things, but with smaller, more delicate work, there's a lot of things that a woman has more patience for. Hanging one crystal at a time. I think we talked about that on a
Yeah.
chandelier. It's almost like meditating. I absolutely love it. And,
Okay.
and the guys can't stand it. They cannot stand it.
Really? Like
They hate it. It's so
it's just too
tedious. It's just kind of
particular.
tedious and particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus like for you, are you hanging each one? You're like, this is gorgeous and this is
It's so
gorgeous.
beautiful.
And
Oh,
look
it's
how
so
gorgeous it's becoming as I
beautiful.
add. Yeah, the sparkle.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I would have them everywhere if I could. I have chandeliers and dimmers everywhere in my little tiny house. In the bathroom, I have a shell chandelier. I'm like,
Love it.
I put bling everywhere I can. It doesn't take away from the quality of the work or the professionalism of it. It's not necessary. I didn't
Yeah.
bedazzle my tool belt because I just feel like they'll fall off.
Okay, that's fair enough.
But it is pink.
Yeah, I love
It's very
that.
pink, fuchsia.
I love that. That is so good. And I appreciate this part of the conversation because I think it is something that's really valuable and interesting to talk about. And I saw like going back to kind of the norms that we had and the things that we think about from decades and decades ago. I was in this art shop in Sedona with my husband, and they had this picture of and it was like a wartime picture, basically trying to talk about how women were joining the workforce. And basically it was like, it's this really famous picture. I'm forgetting the painter off the top of my head, but the painter had basically taken like a man's body and put the woman's face, and it was for Rosie the riveter. And
Right.
so it's this really
It's one of my
famous,
favorite looks.
yes, it's one of this very famous like images that we've all seen. And I didn't realize, because you look at it and it's like, is that a man's body or is it a woman's body? Because she's in like coveralls,
Right.
and she's eating her ham sandwich. And it was basically to like show that women were now going into the workforce because the men
Right.
were overseas, and
Right.
like
It was
trying to,
necessary.
right, like trying to get women like jazzed up and being supportive and getting everyone on board in the whole country. But it was fascinating to me that they used a man's body to model the picture. And it's like, why? Like, why can't the whole feminine person and body, like why did they feel like that was needed in the
It's
40s?
interesting.
And it's interesting that, like we still take some of those images with us, I think
Right.
unknowingly now today. And I literally saw that. So it was perfect timing to have this conversation, because I was like, how fascinating is that we sort of still have that somehow, decades
Yeah.
and decades, it's like 80
Yeah.
years later,
It's
75,
true.
80 years
It's
later.
true. I think that, yeah, a lot of those stereotypes are gonna stay, and even amongst other women. Like, I think it's funny that one time I was asked, like, do you think anybody's gonna take you seriously? Another woman, with that pink tool belt. I'm like, maybe not because of the pink tool belt, but what I know how to do with the tools. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
sometimes we put it on ourselves. We put it on ourselves that people are
Yes.
gonna judge. They're gonna judge,
Yes.
and you just, I'm grateful that I have parents that, as traditional as we are, and we were raised in a lot of departments, felt that it was in no way taken away from your femininity to do these jobs. My
Yeah.
dad, who's raised in Georgia in the South, the really country, is like, my baby's gonna, and my granddad, who actually was, I mean, from way back, they're sharecroppers, like to
Wow.
one generation and a half away from slavery. And when he found out I was an electrician, he was like, that's my baby. That makes good money. That makes good
Oh,
money. There
that's
was no shade,
awesome.
because we've had strong, powerful women for a long time in the family having to take that second job or
Yes.
third job and bringing in valuable income. And she can bring in as much as you or more than great. We're all going to share it just alike.
Yes.
But not everybody comes from that kind of dynamic and household, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And not even to the point of feminism, but just that we are all people that bring strengths in our own right to our family,
Yeah.
right? And whatever that is doesn't necessarily have to be what's traditionally this or traditionally that. So
Yeah. I love that perspective. And I love that your family was so supportive. And I
I
want
was
to
kind of
talk,
surprised.
it's amazing. But you know what? Those are the best parents and like the best families, because it's like, why not support your kids, like going for what they have an interest in and what they're talented in,
Exactly.
despite what we think may be like a good path for
Exactly.
them.
Right. Right.
And so I want to ask you, like, what was your path to get into being an electrician? Because you started young. So tell us about that and how you got interested in this field.
Yes. Well, younger ones now have a lot more options, even in my tiny town. I'm from Brunswick, Georgia. They have a tech school there now.
Oh,
which is
good.
awesome. That was not there when I was there.
Okay.
So I got interested in it, I think the summer of 10th grade. I looked into classes that I could take. And in my high school, Brunswick High, they only had carpentry slash WIR.
And what's WIR?
WIR was wiring. That was it.
Wiring. Okay.
That's all they had available. And I'd only done academic classes up to that point. This was a new idea to go into blue collar work, but it was something that I was very passionate about because I wanted to be more useful for disaster relief services and things that we do as an organization. I wanted to be more useful.
Okay.
So I thought even if this is just a backup career, I'd look into it. But unfortunately, that was one of those classes where what they called at the time BD kids, behavior disorder kids, that's where they would
Okay.
dump them all. That's where they would
Ah,
dump them all the difficult kids, let them work with their hands and get it out of their system. So they were
okay.
just left to their own devices basically all day in the class. The teacher would sit back watching TV. And I was
Gosh.
so disappointed because I really wanted to learn something.
Yeah.
So I kept nagging him. He did give me one book about basic wiring and I looked over it, but I didn't really understand it. It's just a totally different way to think,
Okay.
really. It makes sense to me now, but at the time I'm just like, what? So the
Right.
black always goes to black? I'm like, no, not always. Okay, white always goes to white? Not always. I'm like, the green is always ground? In this country, usually. I'm like, ah, because I like I like having some kind of basis, and he's just like,
Yeah.
don't bother me. I'm watching Wheel of Fortune. And I'm like, ah. So
Oh.
halfway through the semester, literally, I think about halfway through the semester, he found out that the school had to participate in this competition statewide in the construction trades. So it
Okay.
was a trade competition between all the schools in Georgia, something strange like that. I don't even know it's still going on. And so he needed somebody to represent the school and the county they had chosen for electrical, and nobody else in the class was there for electrical. They're all doing carpentry stuff and cutting up, and someone made me a wooden sword, which was really fun.
Oh, that's fun.
For sure, Princess of Power. But I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to represent you. I understand nothing in that book. It is Greek to me. And
Yeah.
he's like, okay, all right, I'm going to take the next few weeks to start training you and teaching you. And if you do well in the competition, I promise I will get you a job for the summer with a friend of mine who's a master electrician.
That's awesome.
Game on, let's do it. I get to learn something and I get something. So it worked
Yeah.
out. I was looking for the picture and then I forgot, but I ended up in the newspaper and yeah, I won the competition on the county level at least. I never went to the state.
Congrats.
So it was fun. It was a beginning too, and it was a three-way lighting system,
Okay.
which is something that to this day a lot of electricians have problems figuring out how to do. But it was really a good basis for me understanding a lot of things. So even though it says three-way, there's
Okay.
only two switches. It's how if you have a long hallway, you'll have a switch at the beginning and at
Right.
the end of the hallway that'll control the same light.
Yes.
So the three is the 3 points of contact.
Oh.
So switch, light, switch
Oh,
in the electrical
okay.
system, right? That's how I explain it for me. For a woman's brain, and not saying all, but I think in general, we speak differently. We just
Yeah.
understand. So I'm just like, why is it a three-way? I couldn't even get past that first part. I'm like, three-way, there's only two switches. It makes no
Right.
sense. You can
Yeah.
only turn it on and off two ways. So it took a while for me really a
Yeah.
long while, a
But
long
that's
while.
such a good way to explain it because I totally got that. And I'm thinking of it's like a triangle. It's like 3 points of a triangle.
Exactly.
Yeah, a
It's so
triangle.
honestly, and like people would argue with me about gender things, but I really feel like we're wired differently. It's not a right or wrong way, but I've spent 30 minutes trying to explain something to a guy, and then I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but this is how I was going to do it. And I show him, he's like, yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like,
Oh, how funny. Yeah. And that is interesting. And you know what? I think it is really interesting, like how you talk about how you feel like there are just certain tasks also that are really fun for you that may be awful to a lot of your peers, or how you think about things, how you understand them in your way. And I think that it's really fascinating, but it works both ways, right? Like at the end of
sure,
the day, you get your job done. and do it
Exactly.
well, which is what matters.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so after that competition, what was it like to then go work with that master electrician? What was that process?
That was funny. I got he gave me his phone number basically and told him I was coming by. But the guy
Okay.
had zero intentions of hiring me.
Oh,
Zero.
I
And that was
see.
made clear to me, but I was 16 and determined. I just kept on going every day to his shop. It was
Oh
a
my
small
gosh.
family operated, like, just him and a few other guys, and it really worked out. He came to see me as one of his daughters. He had two daughters like around my age, and he warned all the guys, look out for Shira. Why did you, the first time I got shocked, how'd you let her get shocked? Like, she just touched it. We told her not to. So it was a really good environment. He also always gave me homework. He's like, because you never know when you're going to take the master's exam. And I had zero intentions of taking the master's exam at first.
Okay.
But he would give me pop quizzes and how does this work? And it was very good for me. It was very
That's
good for me. I learned a
awesome.
lot of the right ways and wrong ways because to do things and things would blow and explode. And it was a large range of ages and experience at the company too. So I
Okay.
learned a lot of old school wiring. And the town Brunswick that I'm from, I call it a smaller version of Savannah. They're
Okay.
houses that are 100, 200, 300 years old that we're
Wow.
rewiring.
Oh my
So these
gosh.
old wiring systems that are not seen anywhere else in the US right now, except for really old towns like this. I learned how to
Yeah.
work with them and learn some kind of respect with it because sometimes it's not the best course of action to rewire. People can't afford to rewire their entire house. But if you
Okay.
come from a knob and tubing system, which I mean, it's from the 1800s, crazy
Wow.
old, earlier than rotary phones,
Oh my
but they're
gosh.
still working. Technically, they're still working,
Uh-huh.
so working with that system and bringing it down to a three-prong outlet so that you can plug in your computer and data network.
Right.
There's a lot of little steps there and cheats that you can be taught by older ones that have been in the system so long, in the industry so long. They teach you how to work with it.
Yeah.
So it was good. The frustrations looking back on it was so helpful. It was such a good start for me in
It
the industry. I
sounds
may not have
I
stayed in it if it wasn't for the way I started.
Yeah, and it sounds really invaluable. I mean, to learn, and that's like, because I'm thinking even here, like in the valley, probably the oldest houses are 75 years old. I mean, and that's pushing it. Like most of them are around 40 or 30 something. So to go
Exactly.
back and to gain all those skills, I mean, that's not only can you not do that in most parts of the country, probably, but then to have people of different ages who've gained that knowledge and then like so willingly teach you and be a mentor to you. That's,
Amazing. It was
yeah,
really amazing. I didn't appreciate it at the time. I'm like,
of
oh, they stick with the
course.
old guy again.
Yeah, it's so true though. It's like those are the things that when you're young, you don't realize always the value of those experiences or the
Exactly.
value of like taking the extra time to be like, why am I learning this workaround when we can just do it this way? Like, why?
Just drill the hole and get it done.
Yeah. But
I don't know the
I
history of electrical wiring in the US. I don't care.
right.
But it
Yeah,
really, yeah, it saved me so many times. And I
that's
still learn new things. I
awesome.
see some things, I'm like, what? How long has this been going on? But because of that background, I'm able to go into older homes here, even in Gainesville. There's some older homes, and I'm like, okay, something's missing. What am I missing? I'm like, they didn't have the ground. They didn't require ground until the 80s. So if there's a break in the neutral, then they have no way for the current to make a complete circuit. So I need to
Okay.
look for the break in the neutral. So it just saves you so much time. And I'm still learning. I'm working with a electrical company now in Ocala 2 days out of the week. And
Okay.
the my boss is 70 plus years old and has been doing this forever. And
Wow.
just the other day, he diagnosed it so fast what the problem was. I was about to go crawling in the attic, and he saved me because he's like, "Wait, I think I know what it is." And sure enough, I'm like, "You are awesome."
That's so good. Yeah. That's Yeah, and that's so interesting. I really never worked like on any projects around the house. And so I wish now that I'm having these conversations, like I wish that I had seen more of this, like, or, and I have some friends who are really good and who do things like this, but not me. Like it always just made me so nervous. But it's like now I'm like, oh, I kind of want to see
Maybe.
how these things work. So it's making me more open-minded, just sort of hearing like what you're doing and what so many other cool women are doing and how you learned and that you did start from the beginning,
Oh
like
yeah.
that we all have to start from that beginning place.
Yeah. The first day at work, I didn't know. And I know the guys were like, please send her home. They asked me, I was just the fetch it girl. So they're like, okay, go get me a flathead screwdriver. I'm like, flat? There's one with a flat head. Like it looks like a head, but it's flat. And they're like, please send her back. And then a Phillips head. And I always called them the star because that's the shape it makes.
Yes.
You know, because I was my dad's assistant at home with little things. And I'm like, oh, you mean the star screwdriver? They're like, no, we mean the Phillips. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's yeah, I started from the very beginning. Came the first day of work in my little Daisy Dukes too. And flip-flops. Not
Oh
closed-toe
no.
shoes at all. Flip-flops. Didn't know the difference between a star head or a Phillips or a flathead. No clue. So I really did start from zero. Even though I was daddy's handy girl passing him stuff, I don't know, whatever he called it. I'm like, what, the thingy, the redheaded one?
Yeah, that's so good. And that's such a good example of like how we can all learn these skills.
For
And it
sure.
just takes time. It just
It
takes
really
like
does.
also people to sit and show you and to walk you through. Yeah,
Mhm.
awesome. And so, from that point where you were doing that, the job with the master electrician, what was it like after that? Like, how did you progress? How did you come to take the master electrician? Is it an exam or what's the process for
Yeah, there's a
that?
state board
Okay.
exam. To even qualify to take the exam in all states is slightly different. You need to have so many hours in the industry.
Okay.
So, and some states like Florida require you to have so many hours in Florida. So that's also part of, I'm not sure if I'm
Oh,
gonna bother to get my master's in Florida, honestly, but because I'm fine working with this company just a couple of days a week and then doing my Mizz-fix-it. I have separate licensing for that.
right.
So just doing small things and little repairs that are, not intrusive or requiring a permit or anything big. That's kind of what I prefer these days anyway.
Okay.
But yes, in order to qualify to even take the state board exam, you have to have so many hours working and someone that's a master electrician to vouch that you have so many hours.
I
Some
see.
states allow you to have experience and you also need to have so many hours in class. At the
Okay.
time in Georgia, there were no class hours required if you had so many hours. And since I started in high school, I already had my hours. I just had to study the book, the NEC, the National Electrical Code, is like this thick.
Oh,
And
wow.
on top of that, oh yeah, it's an open book exam, but that almost makes it worse.
Because you're like probably stressed trying to flip
Oh,
through.
big time, big time. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I took it, I failed. I failed by like 2 points. And
Oh,
I was traumatized because I graduated from high school with a 4.0. I'm like,
yeah.
I know plenty of electricians that are not that bright. It can't be that hard. But I found out later that a lot of them were grandfathered in. I have been told by my boss at the time over and over, he's like, this is your second Bible. I'm like, eh. The second time I took the exam, I did. I studied so hard. I still passed like by 8 more points. It still was like, because also a timed exam. And I don't do
Okay.
well with timed exams. I'm like, oh, sweating bullets.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I did pass
Awesome.
the second time. So then you have to go to Atlanta at the time. I think now you can do it online and take the state board exam. And I was the only girl in the room.
Wow.
And
Out of how
you find out a
many?
couple of weeks. Oh, I think there's about 30 in the room at a time,
Okay.
30 at the time that like are taking it. It's a very popular exam. They had like 2 or 3 that day that were going
Wow.
to go through.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause it's good money. And a lot of people operate for many years and have their own company working on other people's licenses. Which
Okay.
is allowed, but because they're so intimidated by the test. And a lot of blue collar workers are just, they never had to test out of anything. So
Okay.
it's a really daunting. You have to know certain electrical equations.
Wow.
Yeah, oh yeah. You like to getting into deeper things, like if you have a wire that's supplying current for this little house, but it
Okay.
has to travel 50 or 60 feet, then there's something called voltage drop. As it's going along and that line is losing power. It's just like,
Okay.
even water coming down a tube, you need more force behind it in
Right.
order for it to arrive there with the same energy where it left.
Okay.
So it's like that with electrical concept, but you have to know these things. And even though you have like the formulas and other books that you're allowed to take there, you have to know where to find it. And then,
Right.
is it a trick question like those math equations? If Johnny has this many electrical wires and he wants to put them in this box, how many can he put in at night when it's 80 degrees outside? It's like,
Ugh, I hate those.
I never have to face this in the normal, what I mean? In general situation, you never have to.
Right.
But there are those times when you are going to have to face it, and you need to know, like, what's the maximum amount of wires you can put in this pipe,
Right.
and how much heat is it going to produce? What's the ambient temperature of the ground you're burying it in? Is it variable wire? There's a lot more to it than you would think, and every
Yeah.
day you don't have to run into it. But if you're saying you're a master electrician, you're likely going to have to run into it, and you have to be able to know your stuff.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And honestly, I guess I would have never thought about any of that. So I appreciate your bringing those details up because, yeah, I just like for me, I'm like either it works or it doesn't.
That's the way I prefer to do things
Yeah,
myself.
it's like I don't think about all the behind the scenes things, but it's
No,
really fascinating and important to think about when you
it
are
is.
in
It
your
is.
job. And I want to ask, like, so after you took that master electrician exam,
Mhm.
and then first of all, like, how did you feel having that? Did it feel like you had some sort of authority now, or was it just like the next right step? Like, and what did you do with that? Is that when you started your business? And
Yes,
just
that's
tell us
when
a
I
little
started
bit.
my company. She's Electric Incorporated.
Okay.
And I ran it, just me, and I had one girlfriend that I trained some different things that also helped me out, because that was my thing. I'm like, I'm not going to go through all this just to argue with a guy and try to prove to him for 800 hours that I know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm gonna have
Yeah.
one other friend of mine that I know knows what I've taught her. I know she's gonna do it the way I said to do it.
Yeah.
Because once you have your license and then you get your business insurance, and anything that happens is on you. And
Right.
when electrical goes bad, it goes bad. So if anything happens, they're going to come back looking at you. And ultimately, I'm a Christian. I totally believe in doing things as you would want it done to you. So I want it to be the best I can do. I'm not going to say that
Yeah.
sometimes, cut corners, it doesn't really matter. But if it's a serious thing, something so simple as just not making a good connection, making sure that everything's tight. If it's arcing and sparking, trying to make a connection in there over an amount of time, which things can get loose, it can happen. But if it happens really quickly, then that's on you. And if that's happening near insulation, then you have a fire. And
Yeah.
what if somebody's in the house? It's just, there's a lot of things, and I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't go very big. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, you should go bigger. You're a double minority. You could get government contracts." And it's true, but I'm a simple girl to a
Yeah.
degree. I don't like a lot. With more responsibility comes more headaches, and I like to be able
Right.
to leave my job at my job. With
Yeah.
within some limitations. I don't want to keep thinking about it. So I just had one employee off and on. She just worked 2 days a week, I think, and I usually did 3 days a week.
Okay.
And I had a lot of personal clients, and then I got a really good job with a rental company. They
Okay.
had a lot of rentals all over the Brunswick area, and I would do their troubleshooting for them. And I was the cheapest electrician out there. I had all my licensing. I was good with my bookkeeping, so they loved me. And they were very sad when I moved away. But I loved them too, because they were on time with me. I just call her up. I'm like, "Hey, I just finished this job and this job." She's like, "Oh yeah, come and get your check." Boom. I'm
Awesome.
like, "That's
Yeah, easy.
what I like."
Yeah. And so tell us, like, when you moved away, what did you do? And then how did you get to Florida? So, like, what was that journey like?
It's very different. I, from very small, always wanted to do missionary work, and I learned Spanish. Part of my family's from Cuba, but we never really spoken in the house.
Okay.
So I moved to the Dominican Republic thinking I was going to preach in Spanish. But when I
Okay.
arrived there, everybody thought I was Haitian. So I'm like, oh,
Oh, and they thought you
okay.
spoke French.
Exactly.
Yes.
Haitian Creole, really, but French
Oh,
is what a lot of them speak. But Haitian Creole is
it's
like
like a
the difference. If you've ever heard Jamaicans speak,
yes.
Jamaican patois, technically it's English, but it's
Oh,
not. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's a mix of lots of different languages, and unless they're speaking slowly on purpose for you to understand, you're gonna get nothing. And even if they do go slow, you're gonna get 25%.
Yeah. How
And
funny.
so I had to learn it. I had to learn Haitian Creole in order to be productive preaching there, because that's where the greater need was. And as soon as they saw my face, they thought I was family. So I was in like Flynn,
Oh,
it's just one less step, in the ministry. So I was asked
yeah.
if I could help out in that particular field. And construction kind of took a back burner for 6 years.
Wow.
But while I was there, I was asked to work on a few construction projects of ours, because as Jehovah's Witnesses, we do our own construction work. We just
Okay.
pay for materials.
Okay.
So I was exposed on the island in general to some very interesting wiring methods that I'm like, this is not code. This is not code. And for me to have been a licensed electrician and so code oriented for so many years, nothing's
Yeah.
being inspected.
Oh, wow.
People are very poor. And so, for example, if I
Mhm.
need 100 feet of wire to run to this plug, I go to
Okay.
Home Depot and I get 100 feet of wire.
Right.
You know, I get the money for it and I do it. And these
Yeah.
countries, there's very few places that have that many things, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
super expensive for them. Copper is so expensive that people will steal your wires if they're exposed. You have to put them in cement. And even
Whoa.
that, like they'll chisel out the brick wall, they build the house first, then you chisel a channel to put the wires in, then you cover it with cement.
Wow.
You see how many problems, like directly applying water to it? But better yet, instead of one consistent piece of wire, you didn't have enough money for a piece of wire. So a friend of yours had a piece left from their construction. Another one had that, and theirs was red. This one was yellow. That one was blue. And you just tie them all together, whatever color you have at the end. There's no telling.
I don't know that much, but I feel like that seems like a recipe that's not
For
so good.
disaster. I'm like, how is anyone alive? Better yet, the power company doesn't come out and hook up your electricity. If you're trying to build a house, you're doing it on your
Okay.
own. They may give you permission, but more than likely in the poor community, you're just going to steal electricity. So what does that
Oh.
involve? I never did it, for the record. You're up, you lean a ladder, wooden or
Mhm.
electrical, on the power line, and you're skinning out the wire with a machete.
Oh my.
And then that multicolored wire, that rainbow wire, you peel out the end, so it's copper, and you hook it on it.
Oh my.
Not touching it, mind you, while you're leaning on the. I'm like,
That's wow.
excuse me.
Yeah,
So
that
when we were asked to do, I'm asked to help out. I'm like, I don't know your country, how this works. I'm like, everyone seems to be pretty much alive. I ran the ground wire for my home, and I feel comfortable with that.
yeah,
I don't want to touch any of this because whatever I touch, I feel responsible for.
of course.
And
Yeah.
so eventually they wore me down, and I did a few, jobs. But the last year that I was there, I worked full time with one of our construction groups that builds kingdom halls everywhere.
Okay.
And I had to learn how to do so many things. Like if you want to join two pipes, PVC pipes together in order to run the wires inside, which in
Okay.
itself is like super advanced for them, because usually they just have the wires hanging out wherever. But
Oh,
PVC is shielding the wire, is protecting it, even if
right.
it's in a free open ceiling, not even closed up. You want to have
Okay.
it shielded. Birds can get in it, and all sorts of
Oh,
bugs love chewing on things. You want it covered up and not
right.
exposed, and especially if you're laying it on metal beams. So
Yeah.
I did insist on that, right? So I'm like, okay, have this material ready for me. Like, okay, no problem, no problem. And I'm looking for the couplings, like to join them together, because I'm a 10 foot, and I need to go 50 feet.
Okay.
And I'm like, where are the couplings I asked for? They're like, what are you talking about, couplings? And I'm like, oh, how do you say it in Spanish? I'm like, para juntarlos. So I'm like, to put them together. Like, oh yeah, well, you you make those. What are you talking about? Are you an electrician? I'm like, in my country, we buy them. I had to find, they're like, oh yeah, so you use this coffee can, you put a bunch of rocks at the bottom, then you put sand in it, then you put gas oil, which is like kerosene, you start a fire, and then you heat up the pipe, turning it ever so slowly. You use a
Whoa.
bigger pipe in the other end to make it bigger, so then now it can fit in. I'm like,
Wow.
kind of savagery.
That is pretty
I just,
creative, but
exactly. So
yeah,
I came back from the Dominican Republic, a different kind of electrician.
I can imagine.
I learned there's a lot of different ways to do things, and it's still gonna work.
Right.
It's still gonna work. Is it ideal? Would it pass inspection? Maybe not. Will the house burn down? Nope. They're all alive.
Yeah. That's
So
so
our electrical
interesting.
code is so high and so strict. And a lot of times people are
Yeah.
like, you can't do that. That's not code. I'm like, but you'll be okay. Everything will be okay. So in a lot of ways, I say everything's a lesson for so many reasons. I'm
Yeah.
very grateful for it because I learned just how not serious so many rules are. And I'll abide, of course, because I don't want to be breaking the law or anything. But when people get really uptight, that wire is too small to run that refrigerator. And I'm like, I've seen an entire house run on a wire that size. It'll be
Yeah.
okay. It's not the best way to do it. I'm sure it's not the safest way, but it's been working for them for 30 years.
Yeah.
They have a
That's
refrigerator,
so
microwave, toaster oven.
interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting that I could see how like coming in, everything probably felt like very like black and white, like it was this or that, like right or wrong, and one or the other. And then coming back after that experience of seeing so many things happen for years and being like, oh, well, there's a lot of gray area here.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to
Yeah.
do that too. So it made me a
Yeah.
lot more creative too, and a lot better even in troubleshooting to this
Mm,
day. I feel like in a lot of ways, I say the Dominican Republic was my fast forward study course and a lot of things in faith and electrical work and in learning what I'm capable of doing because that's the first time I ever flipped anything that looked like nothing, and it was beautiful. Then people wanted to buy it off of me and pay way more than I ever paid for it. So it
wow.
was the beginning of learning things outside of electrical work too. I had to pour my own concrete floor in the little apartment that I
Wow.
built and learned about the importance of checking the integrity of scaffolding before getting on it when I fell down two stories.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it was a long, oh goodness, that's a whole, people are like, you should write a book. It was a long 6 years, but it was good. It was good. There was good times and bad times, but I learned a lot,
Yeah.
and
Oh
I
my
wouldn't give that
gosh.
back for anything.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can only imagine, like, just even what you've told us, I'm sure is a snippet of what you experienced. And it is
Crazy.
interesting. Like, every time I've gone to another country, like, I've lived in two other places. I've lived in France and I've lived in
Oh,
Australia. Yeah,
cool.
I like love
So you speak
traveling
some French.
a little bit, but I've
Oh,
forgotten most of it, which is really depressing.
oh.
Um,
It would probably come back if you're around it,
I
honestly,
think, yes, I think it would come back. And like, I love it so much that I just like try so hard. And so I want it to come back one day.
You look like you could be of French descent. Do you have any
Oh
French?
no, no,
Okay.
I'm like European descent, but
Okay.
not French. I would love to say French, but it's more like, the Polish, like
Okay. Okay.
these other areas.
But you've
So
been there. You could definitely
yes,
be from the
I've
countryside,
been
and
there.
I could
Yeah,
see
and I
that.
love it. And
Mhm.
it's so interesting, like what you find out. You think that you're going to discover when you go somewhere else. You think you're going to discover other things and like other cultures, but you actually end up learning so much about yourself
Exactly.
and like how you think of your own culture and like
Oh my
changes
goodness.
so much.
Things that have to be absolute that aren't. I
Yes.
was cracking up and it's true. I mean, I'm not anti. I'm not what do they call it? I try not to be extreme in any of my ways. I'm like my bougetto way of living is what I call it. Bougetto. It's a little bit of bougie, bougie from the French
Yes.
influence. A little bougie, a little ghetto. There's a bougetto. There's a meet
So
in the middle
good.
point. But I respect people's what they imagine their necessities are because to them It is. And I felt that way
Right.
too before I lived in a country where sometimes there is no water, sometimes there's no electricity, sometimes there's no toilet paper. Like people, when I was in the ministry, would be like, oh, the Americana está aquí, busca, go get some toilet paper, go get some toilet paper. I'm like, how do you guys live without
Yeah.
toilet paper? And the way everybody
Right.
freaked out here when the pandemic began, I was
Oh,
cracking up because I learned
did you?
there was life way before toilet paper, and there's life after no toilet paper.
Right. Yeah.
People
Oh
survive
man.
and they're clean. Just
Yeah.
saying, it's not the end of the world.
That is
Oh
a
my God,
good
there's no
lesson
toilet
to
paper.
That's a good lesson to have learned, because yeah, man, we were freaking out. I do remember that.
It's
That was
true.
not a fun period
People
in
are
my
like,
mind.
do you have 8 rolls? You need to always have 8 rolls. I'm like, nah, it's not that serious.
That's so funny.
It'll be okay.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. And like I love, to come back around to sort of like where you're at now. You're in a different state. I
Right.
know you started a new business in
Mhm.
2020
Mhm.
called Mizz-fix-it, which first of all, I love the name. It's
Thank you.
adorable. And like I love that you started something new in a year that was actually quite insane. Like for all out purposes, it was for insane for everybody in different
So
ways.
true.
So tell
Mhm.
me about that. Like, why did you decide to start your business, your handy woman business? What has that been like? And you're in a new state, you're in Florida now. So
Mhm.
tell us, like, give us an overview kind of what started everything there.
Well, when I first moved here, I started looking into possibly getting my license to carry over to Florida and just all the hoops I'd have to go through. And minimum, I'd have to get so many hours of experience in Florida. And
Okay.
before I moved to the Dominican, I was actually in Florida for 2 years and worked for another older man and
Okay.
had some experience, but he's since retired. So I couldn't even go back to those hours
Mhm.
and use them. So I'm just like, and do I want to go through like the the heart wrenching examination purpose again? I'm like, maybe not. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if I even want to do this. But I was looking into it and thinking about it. And then I found the job with this other older man that I could just work 2 days a week. And I'm like, I could start building up the hours and brush back up on what is code in the
Right.
US. Because I'm like, I'm truly behind, even if I got a new NEC, which it comes out every 4 years.
Okay.
And it's always got new things in it, always got new requirements. So it was really, I needed to catch up. Hands-on experience, just it can't be replaced. And so
Right.
I wanted to do that more so than just go and try to take the exam with the books, which the books, each book is like $200, $300,
Oh,
$400. You
wow.
also have to have fireman code experience. Now they've made low voltage separate, which don't even get me started with that, because it's not like you could even get electrocuted from data wire. So I don't know. Anyway, so but there's all these sub departments that you have to know.
Okay.
In Florida, in Georgia, they allowed you to have 600 amps and below license, and also, all amperage for all, if you want to do all types of construction, including bigger
Okay.
high rises, etc. I didn't want to do any of that, so I kept it 600 and below. But in Florida, they only have the one that's all encompassing. So you have to know all these things. And all the books,
Oh,
last
okay.
I heard, to prepare for the exam is $2,000 to get all the publication. And
Whoa.
then you have to pay another fee from the state to even get in the list to take the test. And then if you don't pass, you lost all of that.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yikes.
it's a lot. And I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe not. And then when the pandemic came out, I was working just 2 days a week with him, started. They were still working. Construction's been booming the entire time in Florida. It never took a
Okay.
pause. I myself still have my older grandmother who's still alive, 95 years old in
Oh my
Georgia, and
gosh.
Precious, the family matriarch. And
Yes.
then my parents are not spring chickens. They're both retired now. And I knew I was still going to visit them at least once a month to check on them. And when the pandemic started, I actually moved in with them so I could do all the shopping and
Oh
just very
man.
protective of what I call my old people. It's
Yeah.
like, those are
Oh.
my old people.
Yes,
Nothing's
they
happening
are.
to my old people on my watch. So I went into like defender mode. So
Yes.
I went into another, over the years I've done interpreting in Spanish, English to
Wow.
Spanish, English to Haitian Creole, medical interpreting, also legal.
Oh my gosh.
I taught English online up to about a year ago for Asian students.
Oh,
And
cool.
I got my TESOL, and I'm always getting little licenses somewhere. I started painting. during the
I
pandemic. These
love
are all my
it.
paintings.
Oh, those are
And I'm
yours.
always dipping into different things that help me express myself and that pay the bills, you know?
Yes.
So I was just teaching online at the time, online. So I just told
Okay.
my boss for electrical that I'm not going to be doing that for a while because I don't feel safe because they were all going out with a mask. Oh, COVID is all made up. And, you know, whatever people's beliefs are their beliefs. I respect
Right.
that. But you're not going to kill me while you're believing that COVID's not real. So,
Yeah.
or my family, when I take it
Yeah.
back to them, I'm not going to do that. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. And I didn't know when it was going to start back up. Like you said, we were all in uncertainty.
Yeah.
So I started looking at things that I could do. You know, teaching online became a more competitive thing too. A lot of teachers
Mhm.
that weren't now in the classroom were trying to go online. So
Yeah.
I was being pushed out of that some ways because my certification is as a TESOL, teaching English as a second language, but I don't have a bachelor in education or anything like that. And even though
Okay.
I was doing great with the companies I was with, they were making room for people that had more education. It looks better, you know?
Right. Of course.
So I'm like, I'm not going to keep fighting with you to wake up at 6 a.m. to
Yeah.
teach these kids. And I
Right.
love my students, you know? So it was just
Yes.
all that was going about. And, you know, my parents just said, they're like, why don't you just start up your own company like you did before? I'm like, well, I don't have my license. They're like, it doesn't have to be in that. You could just do like lots of things, fix up a lot of things. You can fix a lot of things right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're right. And that's kind of where Mizz-fix-it came from. That just from that idea. I'm like, and that way I can control my exposure. I'm gonna keep
Mhm.
my mask on. I'll ask any clients I have to keep their mask on,
Yes.
you know? And I'm like, I'll feel safer working in that kind of environment that I can go back home with a pretty sure, clear conscience that I haven't taken unnecessary risks, you know?
Yeah.
So that was where
Yeah.
it came from. So, and it's been great. Businesses, it's become largely word of mouth, which is what I prefer
Awesome.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a valuable thing to have word of mouth because it's like, that not only did they love what you did, but they were so excited about it that they wanted to share with someone. And that is
Exactly.
like the key to the kingdom, right? It's like, yes.
Exactly, exactly. And usually what I say, I'm like, I always tell them, they're like, is it okay if I give your card to other people? I'm like, yes. I'm like, good clients know other good clients.
Yes.
That's been my experience. You know, usually
Yeah.
their friends aren't scallywags and they don't want their friends to talk about how I'm like, you know, I did that work from, they never paid me. So they're gonna,
Right.
it's also job security. So I really prefer it, you know, and as a single female going into households too, it's a safer environment, work environment. Usually it's a lot of times older people and they trust you
Mhm.
more because you were there with their friend and you have a good rep.
Right.
So it's been really good. And I have just enough business right now and still can work for that company, which I started working with them again just 2 days a week. And I want to say I didn't go back to work with them again until September, October.
Okay.
So it was earlier that I was just like, well, I'm gonna have to make money doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
It's really doing
love
well.
it's awesome that you have the flexibility. It's awesome that you've also like used the skills that you gained to do like another business, and that it allows you to sort of balance like wanting to make art and going back to see your family and like helping
Exactly.
them. And
Exactly.
there's like that's I feel like what we all are trying to attain is that balance that we've got the important things, that we
Exactly.
can still take time for
Mm-hmm.
those important things, to make a living, to spend time with loved ones, to have some creative time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so good. I am so excited that we got to talk. And it's so amazing too. Like, just to think about for you, if you had recommendations for other women, whether they're young women, whether they are older, like what do you think someone can do to start out? And if they're interested in becoming an electrician,
Mhm.
or if they're even interested in just becoming like a handy woman and starting their business, like what would you tell them?
I love it. Well, first, I want them to like and subscribe my channel on YouTube
Of
because I have a
course.
lot of random things on there that seem kind of random, but they led to learning other things. So
Okay.
just be open. Most of us know some friend that's in the construction world, and most construction workers, if you're not harassing them in the moment, are really happy to have you tag along and at least pass tools. You will learn so much just checking it out and seeing just how not scary it is. And especially if it's a
Yeah.
friend of yours or a friend of the family, they're going to they're not going to give you the hardest thing or the most scary thing first too.
Right.
So you'll start out learning. Two, when you have contractors over, if once again, if they're open to it, like I always am, and you're not really distracting me, they're like, let me not distract you. I'm like, I'm already in the zone. It's very rare you're going to stop me from that. If you have questions, you know, not nitpicking questions, but like, how does that work exactly? Or they're not going to give you A to Z, but
Right.
they can give you a basic working knowledge. And just from one of my videos or a short, you can change a switch in your house. Make it
Right.
something simple. Use usually just two wires involved. Make sure the breaker's off.
Yes. That's key.
You know, I'm like, you people are like, you aren't afraid of getting shocked. I'm like, that would be virtually impossible when the power is off. So I don't always do it, but usually my
Yeah.
tutorials I do, because I want people to learn that there's fear and there's respect. I respect electricity. I do, and I
Mhm.
have been shocked many times. But there's no need to fear it because it follows very specific rules.
Hmm.
So now in the YouTube landia, I encourage everyone to start there, honestly, to look into it, to get some research. And then if you're really serious about it, no matter what age you are, try a little project at home. And then
Okay.
from there, see if you can have a friend that you can follow along with, or look and see if there's any tech classes. A lot of them are online.
Yeah.
If
Especially
you want to
now.
change careers, then you would need, you know, to go through more process. And every state's licensure procedure is a little different. So I can't really say for sure on that one.
Of course.
But depending on how deep you want to get into it, just start.
Yeah. And I love what you said about just simply trying to get education on YouTube, turn off your breaker, try something at home. And then if you really are still feeling it, like go find someone or a friend of a friend that you can learn from them, have, you know, have them take you out somewhere and like ask questions and be their assistant. I think that's such good advice because then you get to see it in person and like
Exactly.
feel what it's like, you know, a little bit to be in that environment before you launch head on maybe into a degree or
Exactly.
not a degree, but like a program or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I'm a big fan of that because I have friends that like got their nursing program and then they realize that they can't stand the sight of blood. You
That's a
know, just
problem.
like that would have been good to know.
Yes.
Until
Yeah.
you go. So if you are, you know, if you're not able to do this or something you really hate, or you know the
Yeah.
temperature is too much, or just environment of being around a bunch of guys all the time and them scratching, and if that is something you can't do, then it's better to learn that early on.
Yes.
Or if there's some aspect that you're really going to love about it. A lot of electricians love being electricians, is what I've noticed. It's
Okay.
kind of like people from California and Texas. There's certain states that are just like, yeah, I'm from California. Yeah, I'm from Texas.
Yes.
They really love it, you know? So it's a little contagious. So you're more than likely to also fall in love with what they love about it.
Yeah.
You know? So I really do encourage that hands-on experience if you can.
Okay.
And especially if you're volunteering to be a free assistant, very few people will turn you down.
Yeah. Right. Why?
Sure.
Why not?
Don't die as
Okay.
you hold this.
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
not hard.
Yeah, that flathead screwdriver.
And that's not a star, it's a Phillips.
A Phillips.
And
There you
there's no
go.
such thing as a wire stretcher. That is like a big, stupid electrical joke they always haze people with the first day.
That's so
And
funny.
I
What
did look for it for a while.
and what
I was like, there's a wire stretcher? Because there's all sorts of things that I didn't know existed before. So I'm like, maybe there is a wire stretcher. I don't know. And everyone like, 30 minutes later, they're like, where have you been? I was like, I was looking for the wire stretcher. And you're like, we're sending you home. They kept on threatening. They're like, we're sending you
That
home.
is so funny. You know what though, Shira? Like what I love about you is just from what you told me in like a conversation before this, and you have so much grit, first of all, to be like, you know, so young that you wanted to learn this and you were like so adamant about going in every day saying like, you're going to teach me this. I'm not going home. Here I am. Like I'm here to learn. I love that. And I love to how you have done so many different experiences and you're still iterating, you're still changing up what you're doing and like continuing like you're continuing to learn. I think that's so incredible. And just like the skills that are involved, like obviously precision, um being really, I think, good about planning out what you're doing and like being strategic, like all those things are very, very key. And I don't, some of them obviously being precise, like I would have thought of, but it's really interesting to talk to you about some of even the mathematical things that you were talking about and the strategy that goes behind things, or the creativity that goes behind things, like thinking of alternate solutions. Just really fun to think about. So I hope that more women after this conversation think about maybe being an electrician or a handy woman.
I hope so too. It's really fun. And I always love seeing girls on the, I don't think every time I ever see a woman in construction, we're all pretty much like, you understand, you get it. There's not that competition that sadly exists in so many other fields that may be more largely women dominated, maybe because there's so few of us in the field. I don't know. But yeah, I haven't really seen that in construction.
That's
So I would
awesome.
love to see more women interested in it. I'm so glad you've created this forum to talk about it. I'm very excited and I love what I do. There are days that I'm just like, I hate what I do.
Of course, that happens.
But overall, I wouldn't have stuck with this 20 something years if it's something that I really hated, because I'm not one to do that. If I really hate it, I'm
Yeah.
not going to stick around.
Yeah.
I'm
Of
not going to make
course.
my life miserable. But I love that you've created this format. And it's funny, we had that similar job background experience that got us
Yes,
to meet. It was one of those things too that I was
exactly.
just like, elder girl, I learned so much about plants that I never knew. And
Yes.
my dad's side is very much agriculture. My parents always have a garden.
Okay.
Always, we have our own cucumbers and da da da. It's not huge, but it's something that I was always interested in, but knew nothing about, growing things from clippings. I love learning.
Yeah.
I think that we were made with brains that can continue expanding for a reason. So
Of course. Yeah. And it is,
kind of
yeah, we
fascinating.
forgot to mention that, but we do know each other because of our connection working. We are both educators doing therapeutic gardening for like memory care and older adults. So
Exactly.
yeah,
And
and
it's
that
so
was,
important. I love
it's,
the whole premise of it.
it
I
was,
love it.
yeah, it was so good. And it's, it is interesting too that you say like we are always capable of learning more. And
Mhm.
sometimes a lot of people, when they hear about this podcast, and I always try to clarify, people assume that it's mainly for younger adults, like for high school students
Mm.
or for students who are in college. And yes, of course, it is for younger adults, but it is also for women who are of every age, who are my age, mid 30s, like 40s, 50s, 60s, like at
Yep,
every age, we are completely capable of learning new skills, of trying out something
absolutely.
different. And the
Absolutely.
idea is to just have that awareness, that these
Mhm.
things exist and then like go for it.
I love it. I love it. And I
Yeah.
feel like as women, we tend to be more cautious, calculating
Yes,
creatures, which is
we are.
good. It's good and it's bad sometimes. Because sometimes we
Yeah,
get so far into our head, we're like, ah. But when you see another woman doing it, you're like, okay, well, it's doable.
exactly. Yes. And
So
I'm,
it's very important to get that out there. And I love what you're doing.
thank you so much. And I'm so glad to have you on. And so before we wrap up, I want to ask you my very favorite last question. And it is to end our conversation. Will you share a sentence with us that uses verbiage or jargon from your field? And then can you please translate it for us so we know what you're talking about?
Okay. All right. This is one I actually use more often than not. I'm like, well, I'm not sure if the GFCI is backfed or if the line and the load are reverse.
Okay.
So GFCIs are ground fault circuit interrupters. Those are the outlets around any place with water. So
Okay.
in your kitchen, you've seen them. They have the reset buttons on them.
Yes.
In your bathroom, you see them,
Yes.
right? So often, sometimes they get worn out, or sometimes they were just wired wrong from the start.
Oh,
So if the power is coming in, there's a top part that says line and a bottom part that says load on the back of it.
okay.
So often people just shove the wires in and whatever guys do, when they're wiring up the house, and it's reverse. And you
Okay.
never know until years later, some outlet is not working in the circuit
Oh.
because the GFCI should have been controlling it, but all along it hasn't been. So they're
Okay.
like, oh, well, it was always working though. I reset it. They may know that, but I'm
Yeah.
like, but that may not fix it because the GFCI was never actually doing anything. It's supposed to cut off current if there's
Yes.
any water that splashes on it, but it can't do its job properly if it's not wired properly.
Okay.
So
Good
that's what
to
I was
know.
saying. I think the line and the load are reversed. So instead of coming in the top, it's coming in the bottom,
Got
but it
it.
may also just not have any current at all or be
Okay.
backfeed. So
Thank you for explaining
rather long
that.
explanation for that.
No,
Sorry.
that was
But at
that
least
was perfect. That
GFCI, at least remember that. It's a
yes,
ground
and
fault circuit.
I do know because we did a little bit of remodeling. We didn't do it. Although my husband is quite handy, but we paid like, because we had a lot of electrical work done, and
Okay.
we did hire an electrician to like come in and do a whole bunch of work. And so I did at least learn a teensy weensy bit, and I
Very
do now know
good.
what a GFCI is, but I didn't know any of the rest of it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So slowly I'm getting these things.
That's good. Those are important
Yeah.
things to know. You know how many times people have to pay me big money just to push the button to reset.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, I have a really, really smart husband who knows a lot more than I do in these areas, and is also willing to learn. And so
That's
he's he's
good.
he's got me on that, like
That makes
I
for a good partnership.
it
But it's so
does.
funny how many guys don't know any of this stuff either. They just, have always been white collar workers. That's all they know. They're like, I can
Yeah.
reprogram your computer.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's that's the thing is everybody has things that they're good at, and we have to learn and we have to embrace people who have other skills to help us in the areas we don't.
Exactly.
And that's how it goes. Like we can't be good at everything. It's life.
It's so true. Nobody's good
Yeah.
at everything.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for being here, Shira. It has been
You're
such
very
a
welcome. Thanks
pleasure.
for having me.
Of course. And tell us where we can find you on social media, on YouTube, all the things. If people want to reach out, if they're in Gainesville, Florida, and they want to hire you, if they want to find you on the web.
Okay, so it's Mizz-fix-it. I do have a website, but I'm going to be honest, I hardly ever use it.
Fair
Um,
enough.
I have my Google number that's also on my card, but the best, and fastest way to find me is going to be on Instagram, Ms.fixit. And I gave you all the information. You told me there's a way for you to show that all
Sure.
at once.
I will.
And YouTube is where you can get all of my free advice, and any questions that you put up there, I answer that as soon as possible. And that's under my old company name, She's Electric.
Okay.
SHEEZELECTRIC.
Okay. So She's Electric is YouTube and Mizz-fix-it is Instagram.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Same here. Thank you for letting me go down memory lane. I remembered a lot of things I haven't thought about the beginning in a long time.
Awesome. It was my pleasure.